Hey guys, Ben Nash from Pivot Wealth here, and today I'm pumped to be here with a couple of our lovely clients, Christine and Walter. We're going to talk a little bit about their journey with their money planning, financial advice, how they found things, and we've been working together for a little bit. Keen to sort of get their insights, how they found the process, guys. Thanks so much for joining us, making the time.
Thanks for having us.
Guys, I'm keen to, I thought maybe a good place to start was maybe just talking a little bit about what was going on for you guys and where you were at before you sort of reached out and we started that conversation around your money.
Yep. So we both moved back from overseas. We were living in Barcelona in 3 years ago. So that was in 2019. I guess we decided to once we kind of started working, and starting to save a little bit of money, to see what we could kind of do with that, and see where it could sort of take us. And Tina, she was more proactive in doing that, because I think she was the one, I think, that booked that initial session. I think that you did a talk here in Melbourne a while back, and so we were part of that, and that sort of, I think that's what kind of perked that interest.
Yeah, I think it's not, I say it's generally not a male-female thing when it comes to like who takes the lead with organizations, but I think it's probably a fair comment to say that the lovely ladies out there tend to be a little bit more on the front foot sometimes with this. Us guys will sometimes, I don't know, do a lot of research, I find, when you talk to people about what the content is that they consume, but sometimes need that nudge to take action. But yeah, look, a pretty common situation for people, clearly fairly mobile internationally from a workforce perspective as well. And I think, we love to travel, so it's great to go and experience the world, but a pretty common sort of situation when you make the call that you want to, set yourselves up and create that base to then think about how to best get on the front foot with that stuff. Tell us, guys, what were the sort of the key frustrations or challenges for you at that time?
You can go.
I think for me, it was mainly like I have a bit of a mindset, if you do have the financial resources to pay someone to do a job that they know really well how to do, even though you could potentially also do it, but it would take you way more time and way more effort. I think I was a bit at that point where we had some good savings, and I knew that just having it there and lying on the bank, we would potentially even lose money with the situation right now. Obviously also just being in lockdown and having a bit more time and to tackle these sort of things that you always have on your to-do list but never get around to, because procrastinating on them. And so the biggest frustration, I guess, was just I didn't want to take the time to do all the research. Just having come to Australia, I also didn't really know like the super, that's something completely new to me. So I didn't know much about how does money work in Australia. Like Walter mentioned, I think it was in 2019 where we had gone to a talk that you gave at General Assembly. And then I had listened to several podcast stories, and I had read, like blog posts on your website. So I just got a bit familiar with that and sort of, okay, there are these options that you actually don't have to do it yourself, and you can just outsource it and be like, just do it. Sort of. So I think the biggest frustration was just feeling a bit overwhelmed and just not wanting to deal with these sort of things, but at the same time wanting to take action to actually, put our money to work, so to speak, and not just having it there on the bank account, not doing anything with it.
Yeah, well, I think with the ultra low interest rates at the moment, that it is really front of mind for people. And look, saving in the bank definitely has its place. I was having a conversation yesterday with someone, and I know that you guys are in a somewhat similar position in terms of your roadmap moving forward.
Yeah.
That when you got cash in the bank, it's great because it keeps you got the flexibility. You don't run the risk of investing into, say, a share portfolio or ETFs or managed funds or whatever, knowing that the markets can do the markets thing at the wrong time, and at maybe not the wrong time, but not the ideal time, and then it stops you from doing some of the other things that you might otherwise want to do. So it's sort of horses for courses, and in that regard. But yeah, I think you obviously want to, it's not something that creates a lot of momentum from a financial perspective either. So just finding that balance is important. But I'm interested to dig into that a little bit, to your comments, Christine, about specifically, like you talked about, you've clearly consumed a bunch of the content. That, there's a lot of information out there when it comes to this money stuff, and I get that the time piece is clearly a big one. I'm a huge fan of outsourcing when it comes to that stuff, because you're getting it straight from the source. You don't have to worry about it. Plus, you have peace of mind that everything is done correctly. But what do you think, like in terms of doing the research yourself versus drawing on a professional to help you? What do you think the difference is from an outcome and process perspective on between those two options?
I think probably time. If you do it yourself, it's probably just going to take longer. You also can't use that time to do stuff that you actually like. Like the fun things. I do think. I mean, I did some research before, and you also did some reading, just to get a sort of a feel and understanding of the topic in general, so that when you talk to someone, you don't just sit there and they could tell you whatever, because you don't have any clue about the topic, and you're just saying, oh yeah, yes, sounds good, to anything.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of, we were in the same boat. I think for me, was sort of predominantly like, having all that, like you said before, all that information out there. And it's just so much of it that, that kind of led to sort of frustration, which kind of led to sort of inaction.
Yes.
Just sort of freezing a little bit. Because like you don't really know where, should I take that advice or should I go down that road, sort of thing. So obviously, like seeking that advice, it's just it's a time saver. You're also potentially saving, money. But it's like anything, you will go to experts to sort of solve those problems for you, because they have the right tools to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that frustration is really common, because you end up like, one, it can be challenging. You know that it's important. You don't want to get it wrong. And then so you look at something and you might read on some, might be a forum or might be a piece of content, and you go, well, this ETF is good, or index funds are good, or ethical investments are good, and then XYZ. But then you go, well, which platform do I use, or what's the wrapper that I put on that? And then you're like, oh, this. And then you go, well, where's the risk coming from with this stuff? And then all of a sudden you're like, shit, this is too hard. And then you do nothing, and then more time passes, and then you've missed that opportunity to start doing stuff and get the results.
Yeah, I also think, like, just for people out there that are thinking about it, I ask myself, how much is my time worth, right? And how much would I pay a financial advisor? And then sort of, is that money, is it worth the time that I would spend sitting in this for maybe a year or two, doing the research and, like reading all these comments? Probably not. Then I'd rather just pay someone and go off and have, to the beach and hang out with friends, than having to do that all by myself.
Yeah. And it's also, what's the cost of that delayed action as well, that if it takes you 6 months to do it instead of 6 weeks, then there is a price around that
100%.
as well. Guys, what do you think? Because clearly there's a lot of people that think about this stuff, and I think that the approach that you mentioned is rock solid. I've actually been working on some content recently around what are the barriers that stop people from getting the results that they want, and I think when people start engaging in getting advice or getting support or taking, whether it's actually getting advice or just doing some stuff that they don't think about what they want or how it works, and what that allows you to do is make some decisions, especially for couples or people where you've got multiple decision makers, to go, well, actually, what is important to us, and what do we want and what do we not want. And I think that sets you up to actually get closer to that decision making point, because at some time you need to get that alignment so that you can move forward, right? But yeah, so I think that's all, yeah, really important. What do you think though, that because there is a lot of people that start thinking about this stuff and then the wheels fall off for whatever reason? What is it that you guys think is the biggest barrier for people in taking action when it comes to this stuff?
I would probably say trust might be one of them. Like knowing who to trust, and who to sort of go to. We were joking the other day because we were saying, you get all these ads on YouTube about financial advice, and you can be a millionaire if you
in property. Yeah, they're all property ones. I noticed.
Click on this link, and so again, it sort of goes back to that point of probably being overwhelmed, sort of a thing. But I would probably say, like start doing some kind of internal research and seeing, where your finances are going, and, like where you're spending money. So, start doing a little bit of that. And, Christine, she's been really good at doing that. She's amazing at kind of tracking all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest barrier is probably just the topic money in general. I think we are very sensitive, just talking about money, I still have that happening when I ask friends, how much do you earn? And they're like, you can't ask that.
Yeah.
Why not? We need to talk about money because, it affects us literally every day. It has such a huge impact on our life. So I think people are scared of it as well. Like this, just, you don't want to, it's just thinking about it might be too overwhelming. People, I think, might also be scared to actually look at where they're spending and what they're spending, and having to tell someone else about that might be embarrassing. Yes. So I think that probably is a big barrier as well, apart from obviously trust, which boils down that you need to sort of have that feeling of trust with the person that you're going to tackle money issues with.
Absolutely. And I think that, just to add to what you're saying, that there's also that our inner spender, I think, in our mind, that knows that actually being financially responsible and financially smart does actually mean saying no to a couple of things today, so that your future self can say yes to a few more things. And it's easy to fall into that trap of saying, well, actually, no, too hard basket. But sometimes it's just saying, well, I'm not quite ready to do that work. It's sort of like going to the gym. If you know you need to exercise or be more healthy, that we tend to delay, and it's winter, and whatever. That sometimes it just comes down to that inner voice that doesn't really want to do that, the things that we know that we need to do for the future, but it don't feel quite as fun today. But guys, you both sort of touched on the trust element, and I think trust is obviously really important when it comes to making sure you're getting the right support and right results when you get, especially when you're getting someone, whether it's a company or a individual, to help you with your decision making or money management. And I'm a big believer that trust alone isn't really a decision making framework. Like I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think my view is that I think the trust is important, but it's not the only thing. But I'm interested to hear, like, how did you guys go about building that trust in our approach to stuff to get to the point where you felt confident that it was the right approach for you guys?
Yep. So I think it was after, I mean, obviously, after the talk that you did, and then I think we did like the initial engagement as well, which kind of just helped us sort of solidify that decision. Because you kind of took us through the process, laid out all the kind of steps, and just sort of made it a lot clearer. And one of the things I sort of mentioned when we were doing that sort of initial sort of catch up was like, I'm a really sort of visual person, and when I can sort of see and understand the steps, then that's that kind of I can engage with that a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that, thinking back on I suppose that process that you went through in assessing how we tackled things, that is it fair to say that it was more so like trust in the process as opposed to the trust in me or in Emily or Siobhan or something like that?
Yeah, I would it's probably a combination of all those things, but I would definitely say it's like, the process was something that kind of just sort of gave me confidence, or gave us confidence to sort of be able to take the next steps after that.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of the biggest sort of key things was, throughout the process, we were never being pushed into any direction. It was really like Bruce and Emily were just asking questions, and just and then we would like sort of to see what our values were, where we wanted to go. And when we had questions, they would really just outline, okay, yeah, if you decide to do X, then this is how the future could look like. And if you go with Y, then the future looks a bit different. But never like they never ever pushed us to say, oh, you should go with just investing, or you should go with just property. It was really just looking at what we wanted, what our values and needs were, and then just helping us to work towards these goals, which these things sort of always help me to trust someone even more, because I'm like, okay, you're not just trying to sell me something. So yeah, in the process also, because we did decide that we wanted to go with a certain modeling that we felt like aligned most with where we wanted to go. But then when we actually read through the details, we realized, oh, actually, this might not be exactly what we wanted. And it was absolutely no issue. Like, we could just circle back and readjust. And Emily was so great and put in another session where she ran through everything with us again. So also just seeing that, you all make sure that it's really right for us, the whole process, and what you end up choosing, which direction you want to go. And so that really was
yeah, definitely. I mean, it didn't feel like it was a sort of like a cookie cutter approach. It's just like, okay, this is it and off you go sort of thing. So it's like, felt like it was really being tailor made for our situation and our kind of goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the right decisions for any person or couple or whatever it really depends on you guys. Like, we sort of know what the pathways might be, but we never really know what you're going to choose, because to do that, you need to understand the impact, how it works, what it means for your other goals, all of the things that you want to do. And then you can make an assessment as to, what the balance is, because there's advantages and disadvantages of all of the different options: investing versus property versus saving versus paying down debt, like all of those things. They've all got their place and can be good and not good. And, at the right time, they all have their place. So I think that, sometimes it's, and that's back to your point about like trusting the process. And I think that you guys probably give yourself the advantage in thinking through like what are the key things that are important for you. But it's not really, you don't, while it's important, obviously, that you trust us, it's not some super secret source that any one of us has got between our ears. It's like, it's a decision-making framework that we use, and then the education sits around that. So you guys are empowered to actually make those decisions. But I suppose it probably helps that there is no product solution, to your point, Christine, about like selling stuff. It's like, I think whether it's whether you would use Pivot Wealth for financial advice or any other business, I think if there is no set solution that creates a conflict, then it goes a long way to freeing up the process to deliver the outcomes that are best for the person, and for the future that you guys want to do. So I think not to say that there are good processes that do have that and businesses that have great solutions, and I think that can have its place. But if you're just into the decision-making and planning process, I think more helpful when you don't, because it just eliminates that thought from your mind. Guys, I'm keen to though here, like we did it, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened through your planning process, but what are the top sort of 2 or 3 things that you guys feel made the biggest impact for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we sort of talked about quite a bit. And it was definitely being able to see the projections and the modeling and the different sort of models, and what kind of outcomes they would kind of lead us to if we went with model A, B, or C. That was, I think, at least for us, was really helpful to be able to sort of say, okay, we can take this path, or maybe take a little bit of this one and sort of mash it with this other one. So that was definitely like one of the highlights.
Yeah, I also think, I can't remember which, there was some prep work, some questionnaires that we ran through before one of the sessions regarding our investment profiles and like how we relate to money, and just asking yourself all these questions, and also like talking about it as a couple, and to really have those conversations. And again, I think it's good that you have that external person or entity that holds you accountable, right? Like we had to ask ourselves these questions. Like we couldn't be like, oh, let's do it next week. Like we had to face these and really sort of do the work there and talk about this. And that was I think helpful.
It's good in the sense that you like Tina said, like you was sort of being sort of held accountable. You didn't want to turn up to the meeting sort of not having done your homework.
Yes.
Come on, guys. So yeah, that's that was pretty good as well.
Yeah, but the modeling, definitely that session, also just because I think going in we didn't really know what was possible for us, and just seeing what actually is possible and where we're at now and where we could be if we turn certain screws. Obviously, like there are certain external factors that will still influence in one way or the other that you can't really have control over. But just sort of seeing what is possible, and also just seeing how much more there is to actually projecting and thinking about your future, and like future proofing yourself, just seeing like certain elements that we probably would have not thought about if we had sort of done it ourselves, and just seeing that how much actually has to go into projecting these financial pathways. That was really interesting.
I think it's common, and I was going to actually ask you this question as well, because I think a lot of people when they're doing planning, or when they're thinking about doing some investing, or buying a property, or setting themselves up to do some stuff with their money, they think that things are really simple. Like there's not a lot of complexity there. And I think it's partly because everyone, you get paid into your bank account every month, and everyone's got a super fund, and people talk about, like to your earlier comments, people talk about the fact that they don't talk about money that much, or there's this bit of stigma around it. We don't get into the ins and outs of it. And maybe it's a bit of, maybe it's like, I don't know, bravado or like what it is. But anyway, people think that it should be, oh yeah, I've got this. It should be pretty simple. And I think for you guys, you're in a pretty, you'd returned from overseas. It wasn't like there was tons of complexity going on in terms of your situation and position. But I'm keen to hear a bit more on unpacking your experience around. Were you surprised with the level of inputs that went into what actually impacted the decisions and the complexity that ended up being underneath the surface?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've had we talked about things like reducing our working hours at some point, maybe in the future. Potentially, we don't have kids. Potentially, having like kids at some point. Just seeing how these all these things would impact our financial situation. Buying property, buying investment property. Using everything to just invest in shares, like just to see all these. I mean, I would have never done this myself. It's definitely a lot of complexity and a lot of number shifting, and so yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised. And it is really, I don't know, these things really excite me. I don't like setting up spreadsheet myself, but I do like when someone else has a really nice spreadsheet, especially if it looks mostly black and not red.
It's always helpful.
And look, I think we were already kind of doing a pretty good job. Like, we weren't sort of sort of going out and on these sort of spending sprees, and we sort of
cheap.
Yeah, yeah, she said it was cheap. But like we kind of just knew where, as a kind of overall thing, sort of where we were sitting. But yeah, we just sort of needed to have those kind of paths put in front of us to be able to know a little bit clearer what can be done, and all those potentials.
Yeah, actually, another thing now that I think about that really surprised me was that idea of having of the cash flow. Like, I know that from the business side, but I think when it comes to more like your private life, you don't necessarily think, oh yeah, in 5 years maybe I do want to cut down to 4 days a week, which is fine because I have X amount of savings that will carry me through this year, and then I have to bump it up again just to see these, like this, sort of this piece in the planning as well, and be like, oh, but you'll be fine. You'll take a deep cut into your cash flow, but it's okay because you have that money there. I think that's definitely something only professionals do. Like, that was something else I would never have thought about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think people think that it being smart with your money is just about investing, or that if you go to see a financial advisor, they're going to say, oh yeah, just invest here or just buy this property or whatever. But the key, I found that making robust decisions that are going to fit in with your life is making sure that you've got that baseline in place. And, generally the best thing for anybody listening in financially, this is not financial advice, by the way, but the thing that has the biggest financial upside is go borrow as much money as you possibly can and then invest it into a bunch of stuff. But everybody knows, or, it's not difficult to figure that out, but it's unlikely to be the right approach for most people, because you've got to be able to sleep at night. Because we're part of the entitlement generation. It's like we want it all. We don't want to be stressed. We don't want to be constrained. We want to have flexibility and do all of these things. So there's an element of making sure that you're finding that balance between the personal things that you want and making smart moves that give you enough to get the results that you want. And I think that one of the things that is important to create results, or to build the motivation to actually drive the action to get the results, is having clear goals and targets to work towards. But if you don't know what's realistically, and you guys, each of you mentioned that a couple of times, but if you don't know what's realistically possible based on where you're at and what you're thinking and what are the negotiables versus what are the non-negotiables, and it's hard to know, well, what should those targets be, because everybody wants to own $1 million home, and that's a goal, but then knowing where and when it fits is going to reshape what you do and what levers you sort of pull to get there as well. And I think that's one of the things, and obviously we're totally biased because this is the stuff that we do, but it's hard, even if you are good at spreadsheets, and I love a good spreadsheet, but it's pretty challenging to build a comprehensive model that factors in all of those things, as well as all of the rules around investing, when you're just trying to figure that out on your own.
Again, that comes back to the time thing, right? Like, how much time do you spend and waste potentially as well? Like, how much do you postpone being able to actually kick off an improvement in your financial world?
That's right. Yeah. And I think even if you are that way inclined with details and spreadsheets and stuff, if you're making a 6-figure decision or a 7-figure decision, it can be difficult, even if you've got a pretty solid Excel spreadsheet, to get the confidence to actually pull the trigger on that stuff. Guys, I'm keen to hear, like, what have been some of the results or the outcomes that have happened for you guys since going through the planning process?
Well, we've sort of relatively new at implementing it, so we sort of as in like kind of like returns, we haven't sort of really started the actions. But we've definitely sort of been able to sort of work through it, covered all the followed all the steps, so we're sort of on our way with that sort of modeling. I think that's kind of what
I think the biggest outcome is probably just we have ticked that off the to-do list.
Yeah.
And it has been on the to-do list for a couple of years. So just feeling good about yourself, just being like, okay, I took that first step and tackled this huge thing that has always been in the back of my mind, and we were too busy, too scared, too busy procrastinating. So just I think that's probably just like it's taken certainly a weight off our chest. Just feeling excited and motivated as well, by like, hey, if we actually follow certain steps and we're very aware of where our money goes, we can actually achieve the things that we set out to achieve, that we would like to achieve.
And all of these things, like, they just kind of makes excited, really, to sort of know that okay, you've ticked that off, you're kind of on your way to doing that, but also kind of having the flexibility to excuse the pun, be able to pivot. If we decide, we see an opportunity and we decide to go down that road as well. Like, that's also very exciting.
And I think that's a good point, because a lot of people think that it's really inflexible, that once they and it's sometimes particularly for people before they jump into the advice process, they're going, oh, there's this thing that I'm unsure about, or these couple of things could happen, but that's just life. Like, there's always a couple of different pathways, and you have those sliding door moments that things could go down.
I think every time I was worried about something and I asked Emily, I'm like, oh, but what about? And she's like, it's okay, it's not set in stone, we can adjust, don't worry. It's like, okay.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's very reassuring, I think. Because you sort of mentioned earlier on, sort of having balance, and that's something that we're very keen on. It's kind of having balance in our lives to just be able to do the things we want to do. So the thing is, you sort of mentioned, like, okay, we could have put all our eggs in the one basket and go for the expensive property, but then we wouldn't be able to travel for I don't know. Well, we can't travel now anyway.
Bad
Hopefully
example.
soon enough.
Yeah. But I mean, like we still have, family and friends overseas,
Yeah.
that we like to see on a, kind of regular basis. And I
Just
know
having
that's,
that flexibility.
yeah, to, having that flexibility to sort of go back and forth. It's really important to us.
Absolutely. And I think that like once you've got, it's like the big ship analogy, like once you start moving, it's easier to course correct. Whereas if you fall into that trap of you just waiting for the stars to perfectly align, then you're always going to be starting from a standing start. So I think a lot of people think that they're giving up that flexibility, but you're really just giving yourself the platform to be able to pivot, as you say, and make those decisions and change tack as you can capitalize on opportunities that make sense for you. Guys, looking back on, sorry.
No, that being said, though, I mean, we did have to make decisions that we can't just, change immediately. So I do think people should be aware that you do need to make a decision at some point, and it's okay as well, because it'll help you get there, right? Like if you never take a step, then you won't get anywhere. But still, you have that flexibility in there, which is great.
That's right. And I think it's that you want to know, and where we have the advantage is we're always looking 2 or 3 steps ahead, so that if you are, when you are making those decisions, you say, look, if this, then it has these advantages, but you're potentially cutting yourself off from doing this. Like when it comes to property, you could go buy an investment property, but it might stop at some point. You can't keep buying properties and then still have the ability to say buy your dream home, for example. But if you're doing that on your own, then you might just keep doing stuff, and then you go to do the thing that you want, and then you realize that you can't do it. Whereas because we know the things to look out for, you go, well, actually, if you do that, you're going to cut yourself off from this option until these other things happen. How do you feel about that? And you say, oh, actually, no, that option's really important to me. Or, oh, okay, yes, because I'm going to get the advantages that come with making this decision. Yes, I'm going to do that. But it's that knowing. And I think that goes a long way to that peace of mind that you're doing the absolute best thing for you. Guys, looking back on the process from your experience so far, what sort of situations do you guys feel are best suited to actually using a financial advisor?
I think you should have some knowledge of your money situation, being able to really tell people, come to the session and be like, okay, I know where my money is going, and sort of just having awareness of your spending, and also what you want. Like really, I think if you are aware of what your main issues are and what your main goals are, you'll get the most out of the sessions. That being said, in the first session, that is sort of what we did, right? Like we talked a bit about, okay, where do we actually want to go? What's important to us? So I think, and also probably just, I mean, to me, it really helped me to listen to all the different podcast stories, just to get a bit of a feel. Who are these people that, go and get financial advice? Because I often think people might think, oh, this is just something for the super rich, and not actually for someone who's, earning good money, but, like a good middle class person. And maybe reading up on a couple of things, just so you have the vocabulary and when certain words are being thrown around, that they're not completely new to you, so you have some sort of idea with the financial jargon. I think that would.
We do try to keep the jargon out of things as much as possible, but it's, and I think we probably do a better job than most. But there are still some things that you need to know, and I think that's part of that flexing your money muscle, that you need to build these things over time, so you can be confident in what you're doing. Walter?
I mean, I completely agree with Tina, but I will probably add as well that you also need to be willing to sort of be disciplined, and have that discipline to actually stick with it, and not go off the charts at some point. So I think, yeah, it's, kind of doing that kind of inner kind of homework, looking at, your own situation and your own wants and needs. And, obviously, we talked about it. And in that initial situation, I think, catch up, I think, was that's the one that kind of sparked a lot of conversation between us, what we actually really wanted. So that was also like a good sort of stepping point.
Absolutely. And I think for couples, it's almost like, even when you're broadly aligned, it's almost like having you've got an independent third party that's going, oh, okay, well, let's draw in from both. And obviously both of your wants and needs and, frustration points of view, they're all part of what makes the right decisions for you guys as a unit. But sometimes it's because we got, there's always stuff going on that sometimes it's hard to follow through. I know with my wife, when we talk about some important things, that sometimes you just get sidetracked and then you don't end up talking about it. And then it's like you say, that it ends up on your list and it's unresolved and it's frustration. So sometimes knowing that you've won, and I think you guys did a great job leaning into the process. You have your conversations around the sessions, have your homework and do your critical thinking, more importantly, while you're doing that. So that you ultimately end up aligned and then you can move forward towards the things that you guys want to do. Guys, what the big question for people that are on the fence with when they're thinking about going down this path is, are the fees worth it? Obviously, getting support is great for all the stuff that we've spoken about, but it does come at a cost. Keen to hear, like, in your mind, what makes that investment worthwhile for you?
Well, like I said in the beginning, for me, it's my time. Just looking at all the outcomes and what we've gone through, and just having had those conversations as a couple as well, with that sort of neutral third party, it's always helpful in having someone in the room. That's already been worth it for me. Just also the structure that, here are the meetings, and you show, obviously you need to do some work before, but you show up to these meetings, you have a very focused session. It's way more productive than I think if you do it on your own. And so, yeah, just having paid that money has been very much worth the time we would have spent.
Yeah, and in a sort of sick twist of fate, because we had like this travel money that we wanted to go overseas and visit her family. So well, we can't go anywhere now, so we might as well do something with that. And that was a good way to go. And also, like, just sort of taking that action, because that was part of the frustration, just like that inaction sort of thing. And we know that nothing's being done, so it's just
makes you feel good.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're in a pretty good position to sort of take that first step, but I would definitely say that it's really worth it.
On one hand, I want to say that with our financial planner hat on, we're really happy that there's some extra money that we can put to work for you. But on the other hand, I want to say let's hope we all get to jump on a plane soon and spend a bit of that cash to find that balance that we were talking about. But guys, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think, really pumped to see how it's come together and see the results that you're working towards. My last question for you is, if you could go back to your 21-year-old self and give them one piece of money advice, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to look at the bills and your account balance. And start saving earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would add to that is, take a look at your super as well. Don't neglect it. Which I think a lot of people just sort of having seen it, and that was my case for a long time as well. Just sort of just sitting there as a kind of backup, but that it's something that kind of will help you in the long run as well. So yeah, definitely.
It's a crucial part.
Yeah. choosing the right super. And look, and definitely starting to invest and looking at those options. Even if you're starting with a kind of small amount, but as the modeling kind of showed us, that sort of compounds
over time. Yeah,
over time.
absolutely.
So
and
definitely having, maybe taking a little bit of more of a sort of visionary look at yourself, so you can get to those goals.
I think we always overestimate what we can do in the short term and underestimate what can happen over the longer term as well. But yeah, I think to both of those points that your super, we've got this weird thing in our mindset that your super is tomorrow's thing that you don't have to worry about until you're old. And it doesn't need a lot of work or effort, but doing some small things can have a big impact. And to your point, Christine, that the saving at some point you need to get good at it. Like it's a foundational part of success. Whether for some people they wait until they're almost ready to retire and then they have to get good at it, they're forced to do it then. But the sooner you can start building that muscle, the easier your life becomes over time. And I think that goes a long way to financial well-being. So definitely, with a lot of time on your side, it's all possible. But the sooner you do it, then the easier life gets from there, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing your story. Really appreciate you taking the time. Fingers crossed we can get you out of lockdown and on that plane soon. But thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.